Mr. Steve Goldstein.
Hey! Woo! All right. Good evening. What's up, Scott? Good. Awesome. All right, good evening. How are we feeling here? Wow, there's a stage. All right, so Careia, right? It's Careia, not Careia. So I am thrilled to be here this evening. Thank you so much. By the way, can anybody guess which state I missed during my travels? I covered 49 states. Did anybody catch that previous slide? Raise your hand. Go ahead. Go ahead. Do you have a guess?
South Dakota.
You nailed it. South Dakota. And I come with treats. That's a bag of gold. Chocolates. All right. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So that was the one state I missed. So thanks again, Careia. Great to see everybody. Who is excited to learn a few simple and effective and repeatable strategies that you can use to engage customers and create success? Thinking about what you do as maybe a realtor or a buyer and holder or a buyer and a flipper, how do you apply these things? Sales, we're selling all day long, right? We're always selling. So you want to kind of position your world into what I'm going to share with you tonight and see how you could come up with some great strategies to help you, okay? So we're going to get personal for a moment here. I want to take you back in time and get our brains warmed up a little bit. Mary, I'm looking at you. I want to learn a little bit about you, and don't worry, no pressure here. What was your childhood dream job?
Man, I've got to make one up. I'll say a footballer.
You wanted to be a football player?
Soccer player.
A soccer, okay. How about you, Chris? What was your childhood dream job?
I wanted to be an entrepreneur.
An entrepreneur. Was it EJ?
Yeah.
How about you? I want a fun one here.
I don't know. Depends if you're a wide receiver for the 49ers.
Okay. Danny, you have one?
I wanted to be a soccer player.
Okay. So raise your hand if you're currently living and working in your childhood dream job. Okay, kind of, sort of, entrepreneur, right? Okay. Raise your hand if you're currently living or working in your adulthood dream job. Okay, we're getting a little bit better. Scott, okay, we got a few. Raise your hand if you just don't know. Okay, I think majority. Is it too late? Is it? Absolutely not. Okay, so I'm going to challenge you tonight, and I'm also going to share a little bit of my personal story as well. My childhood dream job was to be a weatherman. Could you imagine being a weatherman? That's kind of fun, right? But I was a shy little boy. There was no way I was getting in front of the camera, okay? And growing up and losing my father at a young age, I was shy. It wasn't going to happen, but it also shaped who I was. Now, don't laugh. I did get urinated on, and it was really warm, okay? But this is the true story, and thinking about your world, right, and your life. Things are going to happen to you that are going to affect the direction that you go. Fast forward to college, and after college, I wanted to try something. What did I try? Sales. And 20 years later, I was doing pretty well at it. So I challenge you all, if you want something, and maybe it's different than what you're doing today, or maybe it's being a little bit more serious about what you're doing today, you have to be committed to it. Is that fair, Mary? Football player, right? With the foot? By the way, that was me growing up as a little kid. All right. I love the Harvard Business Review because every day this comes in my email box and it takes about 20 seconds to read. And I don't even have the patience for 20 seconds. I usually just skim it. But I want you to look at these two questions. And Chris, can you read that first one that's underlined where it says, do you?
Do you really want to do better?
Okay, that's one. And the second one?
Second, are you willing to feel the discomfort of trying things that don't work right away?
Okay, raise your hand if you feel you want to do better. Okay, right, that's part of commitment. And raise your hand if sometimes things just are uncomfortable. Just doesn't feel natural. That's okay too. That's completely normal. First time I got into sales, I remember cold calling somebody 26 times before they even had a conversation with me. Okay, so I want to challenge you to stay committed. All right. When we talk about sales or your world, a lot of people think sales may be scary and complicated at times. Raise your hand if you agree with that. Is selling scary and complicated at times? Yeah, right, it's scary. We're pitching products. Okay, so who wants to become a little bit more comfortable? I do as well. I'm constantly reading new books, watching speakers. I want to as well. So let's learn some valuable nuggets right now, okay? Everybody close your eyes just for a moment. Okay, close your eyes just for a moment. Take a quick 5-second nap. Okay, open your eyes. It's a hot and humid summer night of August of 1999, and we're at the Wrigley Field ballpark watching the Chicago Cubs battle the Milwaukee Brewers. My best friend Mark turns to me and he goes, "Man, this is a hot one tonight." You know those nights, everybody, where everything just sticks? You know how your shirt sticks to your back and your legs stick to the seat? So it was that kind of night. Suddenly, a young gentleman, he was a food vendor, was walking the aisles, and he whispered, "Peanuts, peanuts, 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 Jason, peanuts." Wow, we thought, is that how he's going to engage his customers, the baseball fan? We didn't know. So I want you to hold on to that thought, okay? The peanut thought. First strategy I want to sell with you today, or I want to share with you today, I'm always selling, is love what you sell. Now, love what you sell, what does that mean, Steve? Of course you have to love what you sell. That sounds so easy. Oh, really? I could also give you a workout program starting tomorrow to do 10 push-ups, 10 jumping jacks, and 10 crunches every day. Are you going to do it? You're not going to do it. You might do it for a couple days. So I'm going to teach you and help you here. Okay, so when we talk about loving what you sell, I'm sorry, what was your name? Rob. When I say loving what you sell or loving what you do, give me a way, Rob, that you show that you love what you sell or you love what you do. What's an example? How do you do that?
I talk about it a lot.
Okay, talk about it a lot. And your friend to your left? I can't see the name badge. Katie?
I make it real.
You make it real, so like authentic. I like that one. And Richard? I like Richard's shirt, so I want to acknowledge you. You're standing out in the crowd. How do you show you love what you do? How do you differentiate yourself?
I do love what I do.
Okay, so you're passionate about it, you're authentic with it. And sorry, sir, what was your name?
HK.
How about you, HK?
Well, you got to show some excitement, Steve.
I like that. You sold me.
What do you think?
Yeah. So there's a lot of different ways to show you love what you sell, right, Scott? Or you love what you do. You could be the energy and enthusiasm person. HK and I think, are on the same page. That works for me. It might not work for Rob, right? Or maybe it does. There's different ways. It could be the frequency or the way you communicate. I actually have a realtor friend. He's one of the top realtors in Chicago. The way he communicates, okay, via text message to me or social media or the unique way he communicates via email shows me he loves what he does, right? And I recognize that. Or I think in Rob's instance, your knowledge, your competence on a topic. If you are very well versed on your topic, that's an example of being passionate and loving what you do. I think I also heard the word being real, actually loving, and I used the word authentic. It's something that you believe in and that excites and inspires you, and then as a result influences your customer, right? Influences your prospect. That's the key, right? And it has to be you, Mike. Mike, your style is different than Rob's. Rob's style is different than Chris. Chris is different than Scott. It has to be the Mike way. It has to be Mike. It has to be natural to you. So I want to make sure you really feel that and you understand that daily. Now, that hot and humid night I brought you to, we already had our peanuts in hand. I actually bought peanuts from this guy for, it's been about 20 years. This is Paul White. He stood on the northeast corner of the main gate. Raise your hand if you have any idea what he said to attract my attention and my friend's attention.
Peanuts.
Peanuts. Okay, anything else?
Cheaper than in the ballpark.
Dan said it's cheaper here than the ballpark.
Best way to enjoy the game.
The best way to enjoy the game. All right, here's what Mr. White said, and I love this man. I got the bag. I got the big bag. Peanuts. I was frozen in time, and I bought his peanuts. And guess what? Every single game I was looking for Mr. Paul White. Now, HK, his style, energy, and enthusiasm, and it was authentic. It was real. That's important. If it wasn't his style, he wouldn't be doing it. That was him. So that's my guy, Paul White, and that's an example, a very simple example of loving what you do or loving what you sell. Also thinking about your world as a real estate investor, okay? You're starting to dissect this industry. You're buying books. You're doing research. You're finding out the legal ramifications. You're immersing yourself in dissecting this world, right, to become an expert. Let's go real simple. Lemonade stand. What goes on at a lemonade stand? They're selling lemonade. They're passionate. They have a lot of competence. They know everything about the lemons. They're freshly squeezed. They have all that data. That's an example of loving what you sell. Or being at a car wash. What goes on at a car wash? They wash cars, but to get you into the car wash, those kids, they're attracting you with their energy and their enthusiasm. So there's a couple of ways. So think about, how do you become a magnet to your prospects or people you may be working with? Okay? I love this one too. In my town of Arlington Heights, there was a shoe store that just opened up, and it says on there, must love shoes. Gina, any idea why it says must love shoes? Why may that be important? Passion to sell, right? Authentic passion to sell. You walk in there and your salesperson loves shoes. How does that make you feel? They care, all right? So loving what you do and loving what you sell is critical. All right, now we're going to have some big time fun, so get ready, okay? As salespeople, we have to capture the attention. And again, even if your title isn't sales, you're always selling. You're communicating. So what do we do? How do we get people's attention? Well, my thoughts are, why don't we just go with the world famous pitch? You know, the sales pitch? Love that. Okay, so I have a pitch up here on the board. I'm gonna let Mary, because she's been so kind, read this pitch, and then we're gonna just discuss it for a moment. So go ahead, Mary, insert your name where it says insert your name.
Hi, I'm Mary from Cleaners R Us. We have $6 million in sales. We've been in business for 12 years. We're running a promotion right now on cleaning supplies, and I can give you a great price. Our mop handles are retractable, and the mop pit smells like peppermint. If you buy 9, you get
Stop! Mary, thank you so much. Let's interrupt that pitch for a moment. What the heck is going on here? What is the customer or the potential prospect thinking right now? Scott, what are they thinking? He's pitching me. And how does that make us feel? Pressured? Uncomfortable? And how often do we do this, whether we're at a networking event? We all are guilty of this. We start talking and throwing up all over people, right? Is that true? We just get comfortable doing that. So I want to interrupt that pitch, okay? But let's just dissect it again. Why ultimately was that scenario so ineffective? Raise your hand if you think you know why. Remember, Mary was pitching. Go ahead.
You don't care about your customer or your client.
Why? What indicated that to you?
You didn't ask them a single personal question.
Exactly. Mary was doing all the talking, and she did a great job, but she didn't ask any questions. We learned nothing about that prospect or that customer's world, okay? So I think, and we're all guilty of this, we're simply talking too much, okay? So here is the idea. Let's keep it really simple and stop pitching. I want you all, this is another one, to be ready with 2 open-ended questions to get your customer emotional or to get the person you're working with emotional. Now, Steve, this sounds simple. This is basic. Of course, I know this. I always should be asking questions. Oh, really? Go out there and you watch people and they start talking. They start pitching. So what's an open-ended question? And sir, I didn't get your name? Jason, what's open-ended? What does that mean?
It's not a yes, no.
Exactly. It's not a yes, no. And it sounds so simple. You ask questions, yeah, that's good. But then you ask a closed-ended question, it becomes yes, no, and it kind of stunts the growth of the sales call or the conversation. One of the most infamous or famous open-ended questions, I like this one. You like that one by Sigmund Freud? How does this make you feel? Or if you, does anybody in the room have a boss? Raise your hand. Maybe your boss is at home or in the corporate America, or you're the boss. Oh, that's the boss right there? Okay, so thinking about your boss, right? Do you like your boss? Closed-ended. How do you feel about your boss? Okay, you want to condition yourself where you're leaning on these open-ended questions, but not just open-ended, emotional. And in this example, okay, when Mary was pitching, she may have been able to go a different route from the beginning and just asked open-ended questions. And I'll just skip through this. What kind of feedback or what are your challenges? Why is this important? What happens when you ask these questions?
Take an interest in them.
You take an interest in them, you help them recognize and validate what's on their mind and their challenges. Sounds so simple, but we just don't do it. We revert to the most comfortable thing, which is talking, and then maybe asking a question or two that's closed-ended. Okay. This guy, Robert Plutchik, he was the professor, psychologist, and the dean at Albert Einstein School of Medicine. He came up with the emotional theory, okay? And he believed there were 8 core emotions. Does anybody attest to these emotions? Have you seen people you work with that are joyful, or that are disgusted, or that are angry? He believed that these were the emotional triggers, that these behaviors made people change. Okay? He's great. You should really look this up, and you'll learn more about Robert Plutchik. So, now what I'd like to do, we're going to have a lot of fun here. If you have a pen and paper, great. If not, I want you in your mind to think about how this video makes you feel. Okay? So if I point to you, you have about 90 seconds to decide how this video makes you feel. We're going to have some fun with this. All right. Thank you. All right. All right, so now it's time to have some fun. Everybody stand up. We got to stretch because if we're sitting down too long, we get tired and, we're not as engaged. Perfect. Okay. So I used to use this ball, when people fell asleep at like my seminars where I was in medical sales for 20 years. I had a woman in the front row. She was from Louisiana. She fell asleep in the front row. I said, that's the last time anybody's going to ever fall asleep. So I used to use this ball, and I used to chuck it at people. So I'm going to throw that ball away. But if I throw this ball to you, I want you to tell me how that video made you feel. HK?
Grossed out.
Grossed out. All right. Rob?
I need to drink more water.
Who's all the way in the back? Is that Leo?
Yeah.
Leo?
Almost silly.
All right. And who's in front of Gina? I can't quite see. Jeff?
Yeah.
Hey, Jeff.
Just thinking about how much water I drank for the day.
All righty. 2 more. Young man, what's your name? Chris?
I got beat.
Oh, I got some good one. All right. And is it Dave?
Yeah.
All right, Dave.
Entertained.
Entertain. I like that. All right. So this is my emotional ball here, and I lost my my clicker. It's somewhere around. Maybe it's in my pocket. Oh, it's right over here. All right. Katie, you want to hold on to the ball? Okay. Isn't that nice? All right. So what we're going to do here, again, we like to bribe with chocolates. I think that's Gina's idea. So I also brought my own. And we're going to just the purpose of this exercise right now is to keep you abreast of emotions. We'll let you stand for another minute or two. All right, so we're going to have some fun here. You're going to see a picture, thinking about different emotions. I want to know, Mike, what's your boss's name? Michelle. Michelle, okay. So Michelle, I want to know how this Ferrari makes you feel. Excited. Okay, Richard, how does this brand new mint condition Ferrari make you feel? Fast. Okay, who's behind you again? EJ? Inspired. All right, I like all your answers, so I'm going to throw you all coins. See if you could catch them. We'll try it out. Here we go. I'm really good at this. Ready? They're all stuck. Here, you could pass them out, Richard. Okay, so what I wanted to get you is just thinking about, you can hold on to the bag, but make sure you pass them around. Okay, thinking about different items and how they inspire you. So Mary, when I say a designer watch, how does that make you feel?
Like it's a waste of money.
Waste of money. It's interesting to hear that. Dan, how about you?
Fancy.
Fancy. Gina, designer watch? Fancy. Okay, so I like confident, okay? But again, how you feel is different than how I feel. We're all different. And again, thinking about your customers or your prospects or anybody you're working with in the real estate world, everybody's going to feel a little different. How about the candy bar? Zach? That's my son's name. Zach with an H. How's a candy bar make you feel? Hungry. It makes me satisfied. You could pass out the candy. I got a couple bags. All right, and then one more here. A broken toilet. Could you imagine a home? That's the first thing that resonated with me when Scott was showing the pictures. I saw the toilet, right? It's a really personal area, right? Could you imagine a broken toilet? Rob, how does that make you feel?
It makes me think of what I'm going to be doing tomorrow, I think.
Yeah. How about you, Lynn? Sedentary, yeah. I would say it makes me angry, okay? And then we wake up in the morning, who's coffee drinker here? I never was, I am now. HK, no coffee? What's your drink of choice? Ooh, well done. Okay, so coffee often makes us feel awake, okay? So the reason for this, and you can sit down if you want, if everybody is stretched enough, you can hang on to the ball if you want. It's kind of fun. So thinking about people and thinking about any kind of change when they're buying something or they're in a new endeavor, they have to get emotional about it. That was the purpose of that exercise, right? So think about if you are a realtor or you are an investor and you're working with somebody, for them to currently go from the person they're having their business relationship with to you, they have to get emotional. They have to be triggered for change. They have to be upset about something, okay? All right. So there's a definition on the board here. Dave, can you read that definition out loud for the group?
A reason or argument offered in disagreement, opposition, refusal, or disapproval.
Okay, what are we talking about here? Any guesses? Scott? Objection, Your Honor. Okay, yeah, a boulder. Yes, I want you to start thinking about objections. In any situation you may be in, what kind of objections may you hear? I want you to put this one on your notepads or in your mind as well. Think about the course of your work. What kind of objections do you hear when I say that? Meaning people, a barrier to advancing. Chris, what are your thoughts? What's on your mind when I say objections?
It's not enough money.
Okay, so it's the money thing. All right, Richard, what do you hear?
Room's too small.
Okay, so the room's too small, those kinds of things. Go ahead.
I just started looking.
So it's timing. Okay. What else? Any other interesting or different ones? Anything kind of funky?
Not interested.
Not interested. Okay. All right. So thinking about that, what we just did as a group here, we just got a pile of objections, probably almost a half a dozen. You want to start thinking about that in advance, right? And then how do you combat your objections in advance? So take the top 6 objections you may hear, and then what do? You answer them, okay? You answer them and you address them in advance, literally. You combat them. That's what gets people most comfortable. So I want to give you an example I come not from a real estate background. My sister is a world-famous realtor. She's a realtor for the San Diego Padres, ironically. But I come from a medical sales background, and I used to sell 300,000 different supplies, okay? And one of them was, any nurses or doctors or anybody in the healthcare field or have any friends in the healthcare field in the room? Yeah? So if I say medical surgical gloves, how personal of an item do you think those are, Frank? Yeah, awfully personal. I see a smile over here from the attorney. What's on your mind?
My wife is a dental assistant. She uses gloves every day and is very particular about what kind.
Absolutely. You're like, it's gloves. What's the big deal? But traveling 50 states, Canada, and Latin America, I always dealt with surgeons and doctors and nurses who would be complaining. And I remember we had this one glove that had oatmeal inside, and it was white. And people would always say, Steve, why is this glove white? Or they would say, this glove is irritating my skin. Or they would say, this glove doesn't fit correctly. So what I always did in that initial meeting was I told a quick story. I said, you know what? We did some focus groups with many nurses like yourself, and they told us they preferred a nice clean color, so we made it white. You're also going to notice anytime you switch gloves, the glove may irritate your skin. There's a little bit of a break-in period. Also, you might have to try in a different size, just like a shoe or a shirt, to be accommodated correctly. So thinking about your objections today and what you're hearing, the timing's not right, the room's too small, too much or too little money, you have to start thinking about how can you address that in advance? What's the answers to those objections? Okay, combating your objections in advance. I love this one. I had a home in Buffalo Grove that wasn't selling, my own home, okay? This was where I lived about 5 years ago, a portion of the house right there. And I asked for feedback on why it was not selling. And I kept reading about the location people were worried about, the neighborhood, right? The neighbors. It was the biggest house on the block, so that was kind of obnoxious. And we were really concerned it wasn't selling. So what I did was I wrote a letter. So when people were going through the walkthrough, right, at that first, and you know this better than I do, that first initial meeting, they would come and grab the brochure and they saw something that says, hello, and welcome to our home. We believe you will fall in love with our home just like we did. Now listen to this piece. The families surrounding the block are incredibly warm and caring, and the neighborhood is terrific. And I talk a little bit about Lou Malnati's, and I say the location is excellent. And here's how I finished. We would also be happy to answer any other questions you may have. We hope our home may become your home. Okay? Completely out of the box, something different. Did it work? I don't know. Well, sold the house within a week. Okay? So we knew it had some kind of influence. We actually had 2 offers. So the whole point was I found out what the objections were and try to address them in advance. So I really want you to think about that. That's one of my favorite strategies. Okay, the next one is tenacity. Maybe you're working with a family. How often do you have, I guess I'll turn it around. Chris, if you're working with, on another deal, who's usually the decision maker? The champion or the decision maker in your transaction? You are, right? Yeah, you're in control, right? So if you flip it, right, literally, and you're dealing with other parties, right, it could be a husband who needs the wife there, a wife who needs the husband there, who needs the child there, who needs the relative there, the person with the money. The key is to be tenacious and find that person. Or if you're the boss, you find the answers. So that's all about tenacity. I'm going to keep this one really short. There's a video to kind of show tenacity. Think we could do that, Scott? I like this a lot. You're the boss. Got it. How's the chocolate going? Here you go. You'll take a pass. Yeah. Right. So when I say tenacity, Dan, when I say tenacity, what does that mean to you?
Kind of fired up, aggressive.
Okay, fired up and aggressive. HK, how about you? Tenacity, tenacious.
Motivated.
Motivated. Okay. Who else? Rob, tenacity.
No quit.
No quit.
I like the word grit.
Grit. So,
Don't give up. Keep going even if it's hard.
right. So again, I'm coming from a sales perspective, but thinking about your world, right? There's a lot of things that are frustrating, like terribly, right? So how can you combat that with grit, with tenacity, with hard work, all those kinds of things? It's key, and not to lose sight of that, okay? Also, and again, I'm thinking sales situation, but you're dealing with people. How often are you dealing with people? Every day, right? Is that fair? Okay, people. So people are always changing every single day. So you got to think about who's in front of you, who are you working with? Where are they from? Okay? Are they from a different city? Are they from a different country, right? Because I made the mistake for many years in sales. I thought everybody was kind of the same. You know, I would be working in New York City. The next week I'm in Oklahoma City, and then down in Mexico City. And I thought it was generally the same, maybe different languages and accents. It's completely different. So being conscious of that is critical. So we talk about chameleons, right? Richard, like I like your color. It's going to fit well here. What is a chameleon?
It can change colors to blend into its environment.
Right. Do you know, well, chameleon's actually a lizard. It's in the lizard family. But yes, it does change colors. Do you know why it changes colors? You said blending into an environment. Why else?
Probably it's a protection.
Ooh, I like that. Zach, what you're feeling the chameleon? I could.
Survival.
Survival, yeah. It's a way to ward off predators, okay? It's also a way to give out social signals, okay, to attract other people. You like that? I like that color. It matches your shirt. Okay. So thinking about a chameleon, how can you adapt? And this is another one I like to share with you all. Just thinking about the situation you're in and how can you quickly, Jason, adapt to those other people, right? Body language. I love that one, body language. Take a look at who you work with, right? Who you're meeting with on a daily basis, what signals they're giving you, right? But then also what signals you're giving them, okay? So the key the key to having success often is that adaptation, okay? So think about body language. Does anybody have a story or have they gotten any kind of unique negative or positive body language? What do you look for? Who wants to share? Go ahead. What's your name? Jim?
Open hands.
So like an open,
No, like open down low.
okay,
I'm surprised, but this is old enough, but this is kind of like open and friendly, I think.
okay,
Especially if their body language is kind of different than yours, you kind of want people naturally mirror.
sure,
So doing those things, that positive body language helps you kind of open up.
right. Who else? Who else is conscious of the way, what they're seeing from that other person or even themselves? Go ahead.
I
Katie?
can talk a lot with my hands, but I decide to hold something so that I don't go crazy. 'Cause I hold
Okay. Yeah, and I'm guilty of it too. I mean, you know, sometimes you see yourself on video or you're listening, you're like, oh my gosh. So maybe you should be holding a microphone or holding a clicker or holding a pen or a portfolio. Anyone else? What else are you conscious of? Is there a certain body language or sign you look for from people you're working with, people?
Arms crossed.
Arms crossed, okay. What does that give off?
Disinterested or
Yeah. HK, how about you?
I noticed probably the arms or the chin.
Okay.
The chin, not if another hormone.
There's thousands, there's actually millions, and it's not until you're completely like really abreast of it and conscious and looking for it do you realize all the little subtleties. It's really interesting, even the eyes, the way the eyes move up and down. It's pretty interesting, and it's going to affect, obviously, your world. It's going to coincide a lot of times with the objections, and you want to just be a little bit more conscious of this. Okay, this one's funny. We'll show you part of this. What I want to show here, and maybe we'll cut this one off, is a sales call, okay? And I want you to look at the body language on both sides, and I also want you to look at some of the strategies I shared today and what this gentleman may be using and what he may not. And again, thinking about your world, that's most important. You're all here today. when you're interacting with other people? What are you giving off, right? What do you know is one of your strengths, right? And then what do you think you need to improve on? I like that. It was fun. All right. So again, the purpose of that, a lot of times we're dealing with people who may not be the correct decision maker. And again, I was guilty of this in my career as well, where I would be spending time with different people, and ultimately they weren't the decision maker, right? If the C-suite person is the decision maker, you got to make sure you get the right person, right? The CFO, the CEO, whoever they may be. And then that body language, how would you describe that body language, Dave? Awful, right? That was great. It was good. I like that one. It just shows you the wrong way. Sometimes you have to recognize the wrong way. So now I want to think about you and everybody in the crowd here and thinking about your world. What are you doing as a real estate investor that's completely different than everybody else? Okay? Take that in for a moment, right? What are you doing to change the mindset of the people you're working with or what you're doing. What comes to mind? Is there somebody who has a secret or something they do they believe is unique? Scott? Bathrooms? Focus on the bathrooms. How do you feel that, what do you think is one of your differentiators that makes you unique from everybody else?
I actually do the business, so I'm not just a realtor. I actually invest and buy things myself. So,
Okay.
that's to me that separates myself from other realtors out there.
Okay. Anyone else? Jason, how about you? What do you do? You think that stands out?
I think I'm really good at listening and following up.
Okay, so really good at that communication piece. How about you, Gail? Sorry, I haven't called you on you.
Hey, I'm just getting into business.
Yeah?
I'm trying to figure out what my
Okay.
plan's gonna be.
So you're trying to develop the competence and the confidence and understand it. Okay. So one of the things I like to do, and I think this could pertain to you and your world, is to focus on different ways to engage that people we're working with. Okay. So we think about buying or flipping homes. How often is the price an important factor? It's all about the money, the money, money. And again, in my sales career, especially medical sales, it always went to how much is it? And I try to completely change the conversation. I like to focus on stories and innovations and positive outcomes. Now, think about your world. How do we tell stories within your world? Chris, can you come up with an idea where you're telling stories or stories of a home that really resonated with what you were doing?
I think I just can use examples of past success to kind of reassure the person I'm buying the home from that we're going to actually go through with what we say. And so it's just about using stories to build, reassurance.
Okay, I like that a lot. Gina, how about you? What works for you? Is there something that you rely on? Is there an innovation, a unique idea, a story? Thinking about what these really mean, right? It just sounds so simple. Of course you tell stories. Well, do you have an effective story that you tell? Is there something that you go to, that you share? Who else has something that they like to maybe share that differentiates themselves? Anyone else? Stories and innovation. Zach? I love the name.
We have to sell it, we offer the relocation services,
Sure.
stuff like that.
Okay.
More
Okay.
than just we'll buy your house for cash.
Exactly. Right. So you want to just change that conversation a little bit and get a little more substance there. So that's your breakdown of things. How can you rely on a story? How can you rely on an innovation or a new positive outcome to differentiate yourself? Okay. Again, my example, I was selling medical gloves. How did my competition sell? They always sold on price. Okay. I turned it around and sold the other way. Even if I was selling the most expensive glove on our line, I never talked about price. I would tell a story. Remember I was telling you about that oatmeal glove? I had a glove that had aloe on the inside. It was more expensive than any other glove. It was the hardest one to sell. So I relied on stories. I talked about nurses having dry skin and that it would be beneficial to have a glove that had aloe. I talked about innovations of where it came from, where the idea came from, and then ultimately the positive outcomes. So just different examples of ways you could get away from just talking about money. Money's critical, but it's the mindset. So just to change that around, okay? Again, no pricing talk. Otherwise, it's always going to go that route. How much is it? How much is it? How much is it, right? Whether dealing with medical supplies or homes or buying and selling or holding or flipping, that's what it's going to be. Okay, we're gonna conclude with one video and then a couple more nuggets. This one's really fun and really short, and before we're done.
Oh my God, I don't know your name. Great. Your mom? Yeah, she's awesome. I forgot my friend's name. This is terrible. You know her name? Yeah, I do. I repeat after her. She didn't know my name. No. Yeah, I have no clue what her name is. Is it Kelsey? Yeah, Kelsey. Oh my God, so close. Next time. Come on up. Okay. Bye, Kelly. Kelsey.
Okay, so what did we see there? Who's really good at remembering names? It's really hard, right? Isn't it? And why is it so important to remember people's names, Rob?
Shows you care.
Shows you care. How about you, Lynn? What?
Connection.
Yeah, connection. It's the most powerful word you could hear is your own name, right? So if I look over this way and I say, Mike, his brain just got stimulated because that's the most powerful word you could hear is your own name. So it's really bad when we forget, or what's worse than forgetting? The wrong name, okay? So I love this one. There's a great Mexican restaurant in my town. They serve great margaritas, and maybe this is part of the reason why. But our server introduced herself, okay, which is nice. And she also told a story, which I love that approach. She said, hi, I'll be taking care of you this evening. My name is Marsala, just like chicken marsala, okay? I love that. So that was a great way for us to remember and associate. 20 minutes later, one of my best friends is there, and he needed his soup warmed up, or maybe he needed another margarita. So he goes, excuse me, Marissa. He blew it. You love it, right? He blew her name. Not that he just forgot it, but he gave the wrong name. So thinking about how critical that is, and raise your hand if you work with people every day. We all do. We have to find ways to improve this, okay? There's a couple ways to do this. There's actually many. But so think about it. You're at a big event like this, and let's say none of you know each other, right? And we're introducing ourselves. We're out having a cup of coffee or a cocktail, and I meet somebody, and she goes, hi, I'm Gina. I'm like, oh, hi, I'm Steve. I'm not focused. I heard Gina, but I just wanted to make sure I introduced myself to you, and it was all about me. So the first tip is to focus for a moment and take it seriously. I know that's Scott right there, maybe with one T, and we'll get to that in a second, okay? So focus and take it seriously. Also, this is gonna sound a little creepy, but freeze and repeat, right? So there's Rob over there, Rob with one B. I know a Rob with two B's. I actually do, okay? But to say, Rob, it was so great to meet you. I'm acknowledging and respecting you, okay? And I'm spending some time on your name. It sounds crazy. It sounds simple, but we don't do it. And then the spelling. What if you don't have a name badge? Mary? You don't? Oh, you do. Okay. You could ask questions. How do you spell your name? Maybe your name's John. Maybe your name's Stephen. Maybe your name's Chris, Rob, Scott. They could be spelled all different ways. So I often, when I forget, I might ask also, and how do you spell your name? Okay? And when you have the business card, you could acknowledge it that way. There's a lot of tips. And one other that I like, kind of fun. Imagine this name. What's this name? Claude. Like, what kind of name is that? And how are you going to ever remember that? Right? Gail, any ideas? How would we remember a name Claude? Well, I would think of a cloud. Okay? So there's different tips, different strategies that work. I also like acronyms, right? When each letter stands for something. At one my former projects, that we had a barista on staff, right? She's making coffees all day. Nobody knew her name. Guess what her name was? Enriqueta. Like Enrique, Enriqueta. And I wanted to make sure I remembered her name. And I wanted to make sure she was always having a good day. So I actually asked a few personal questions, and I found out she had two daughters. One daughter was named Leslie. The other daughter was it Jocelyn, I believe? Yeah, it's been a while. So I created my own little acronym for her. You see the acronym? LEDGE. And I knew, respectfully, her name with her two daughters, Leslie and Jocelyn. So just thinking about what works for you, right? And Richard, it might be a completely different style that works for you, but just being more conscious of this, because when you blow it, it's tough, right? Or if you forget, it's tough. When you call people by the wrong name, that's really tough, okay? So I like that. And again, you have your name badges, so we're all cheating tonight, right? We can't, if we rip them all off, that'd be kind of fun, right, Lynn? And that name too, so that's important. It's the most powerful word you could hear is your own name, okay? When it comes down to it, in conclusion, whether you're in sales or buying or flipping or being a real estate investor, you have to use you have to use creative strategies to differentiate yourself. There's a lot of people that are doing what you're doing today, okay? Ultimately, you want to win that business, right? You want to flip that house, you want to make the profit. You show me $30,000, I want to know how long is it going to take for me to get that $30,000. So ultimately, you want great strategies to win the business, engage, and create sales success. And I really appreciate everybody tonight. Thank you so much for the time, and have a great evening. Thank you.